Hi folks, Florida Man here. We're one of the biggest, and probably the best, of the diplomacy YouTube channels. I'm also currently publishing a lit RPG fantasy novel on Railroad called Ruthless, Path of Conquest, linked in the description below. Today I'm bringing you my commentary on round 2 of the Liberty Cup this year, where I played as the nation of Italy. So naturally this is going to be a very interesting game. Longtime viewers are familiar with my feelings about being assigned to play Italy. It is far from my favorite country to play, but it's at least usually not as bad for me as England. So, in round 2, I'm assigned to play as Italy. The first thing I do, I make a good relationship with Austria. I try to establish that relationship as very strong, and Austria is perhaps making even stronger efforts toward that than me. You can see when orders process, spring 1901, that Austria and I do not attack each other. The spring 1901 attack on Austria always seemed like one of the crazier possible openings for Italy to me anyway, so I am instead opening for a possible Lepanto. I also had good conversations in spring 1901 with France and Turkey. The Turkish player having suggested to me a possible Kraken, an alliance with me that would go against Austria. I was quite surprised when Turkey instead made the Crimean Crusher opening and went straight for Russia. Surprised, yet pleased. This was such a foolish move, and also not at all what I was expecting, given what he said to me, that I felt it was basically an unintended favor. Turkey, on the one hand, had clearly not done anything that was conducive to working with me, so I couldn't be blamed by anybody for not helping him, including him, and at the same time, he had alienated his most likely natural ally of Russia. So we were really in business, I felt. I also had conversations, naturally, with the other powers on the board. I spoke to France, who was played by a player who's very intimidating, very dangerous, just probably one of the stronger people in the tournament as a whole, so I was a little nervous, but he was saying all the right things about not having any early conflict with me as Italy, and I do think it makes sense for France to avoid such conflict, but I also suspected that I would need to watch him, because there was always the possibility this guy might think soloing in round 2 is his best way to win the tournament, which it would be. And France is usually one of the best countries to play as if you're hoping to board top or solo. France and Russia, in my opinion, are the two strongest. So I was a little bit wary of him. And as we go into fall 1901, we see that I am looking to get into position for that Lepanto I mentioned. At the same time, there are, I believe, misorders. Austria was supposed to order Albania to Greece. I think he accidentally ordered Trieste to Greece, but he didn't have a unit in Trieste, so the unit in Albania just didn't move. Austria did, however, correctly order support for Russia taking Romania. At the same time that Turkey thought that he was getting support into Romania, and that Turkey tried to attack Sevastopol. So Turkey has now fully alienated Russia, and attacked Russia twice, stabbed Russia twice, effectively, and it's glorious to behold. I mean, it's possible that the initial bounce in spring 1901, was agreed upon between him and Russia, and that Russia imagined that Turkey might be in Armenia right now. But there's no way that Russia asked Turkey or told Turkey it was okay to do all that Turkey has done in this season. And there's also no way that Turkey was okay with Russia moving Fleet Sevastopol to Romania and thereby leaving Sevastopol open for a fleet build. So Turkey's in real trouble here. At the same time, what's going on in the West appears to be a French-German coalition, based on the fact that France supports Germany into Belgium here, which is a nice way of sealing that deal. And Germany also used his Denmark fleet to tap North Sea, which does absolutely nothing here. but the symbolism is a thing, and it doesn't look very friendly. If Russia had opened north, England would not have gotten Norway. Thankfully for England, that did not happen, so England did in fact get into Norway. But this game is starting off pretty rocky for England and for Turkey. It's not looking good for the witches. Going to the build phase, we see that naturally I'm getting a fleet in Naples. France, trying to be on the friendlier side toward me, builds fleet Brest and army Paris. Doesn't want to antagonize me with a fleet in Marseille, which, that's the correct calculus. As Italy, I am easily spooked by French fleets, and they just need to be as far away from me as possible. Austria builds army Trieste, seemingly trying to avoid spooking Russia. Russia builds fleet Sevastopol because Turkey is just in the doghouse. And army St. Pete, clearly trying to take advantage of the fact that England is on the outs with both of his neighbors. England himself builds fleet Edinburgh, and Germany makes what will turn out to be a key mistake here. He builds fleet Kiel and fleet Berlin. And I'm talking to France after the builds, and he indicates to me that this is a no-no for him. He considers it a threat to France in the long term because Germany isn't balancing enough, has gotten too much into navy units, which I'm just shaking my head and face palming. I don't understand. I don't agree at all. I think that it's natural for Germany to do this, and also Germany needs to think in the long term that not only England but also Russia are enemies in the north. And so I don't really know that it makes sense for France to be this bothered by Germany having as many naval units as England does, and slightly more naval units than France has. I just don't see it. Maybe other people will disagree with me. I understand if you do. It would ultimately, potentially, possibly present a problem, but I don't see it as this inevitable threat. I get that there's nowhere for the German fleets to go once England and Russia are defeated, except France, but that's a long ways away, and France has plenty of time to make sure that they are even in fleets, or that France comes out slightly ahead in fleets, and it just does not make a whole lot of sense to me for France to, as we will see, change his whole foreign policy based on his allies' builds. So, France moves into the English Channel and into mid-Atlantic Ocean here, as you'd expect. He also supports himself into Picardy and moves Spain to Gascony. He's moving everything away from me, which is nice, and it looks like a pretty standard preparation for an attack on England, which might be the case. We'll see. Russia supports himself into Norway, so England loses that space and has to retreat to Skagerrak. Germany, meanwhile, is putting everything into the attack on England too, which is just fleets, because his armies cannot walk across water. In the east, I am able to sneak into the East Mediterranean Sea because I literally can't be stopped, because Turkey built a fleet in Constantinople, seemingly concerned about holding onto the Black Sea fleet rather than about defending against me, which is good for me. Austria supports himself into Greece and also supports Russia to hold in Romania. Everything Russia tries bounces here and fails to move, but the creeping sensation around Turkey is that he's being surrounded, and there's a very high chance he's going to be crushed. And the situation is only getting worse this season. Even if he's not actually losing any centers yet, he's in bad shape. Real bad shape. Going to the fall, we see that I convoy over into Syria, because, I predicted that would probably be the place that Turkey wouldn't defend. It's a guessing game in the east there, but many, many Turkish players will do what comes naturally to most people, which is not to try and read minds if you don't know the other person very well, but to try and protect your actual vitals. Not to try and protect places that someone might feint an attack on. So I'm not surprised he didn't protect Syria here. It is kind of basic human psychology that he would not. Assuming that I don't know anything else about him, that is usually the norm. Austria moving into Aegean Sea and just further surrounding Turkey along with me. Russia taking the Black Sea and otherwise just holding in place. And I suspect Russia knew Turkey was going to vacate Black Sea because he didn't apparently need to support that move. Or maybe someone forgot to enter it into this map. In any case, I wouldn't be surprised if Turkey tried to tell Russia what he was going to do as a way of smoothing things over, because Turkey very badly needs to try and repair the relationship with either Austria or Russia, and Austria has no reason to turn coat at this point. In the west, we see that Germany is being stabbed here. Very unfortunate for him. He is kicked out of Denmark by a Russian convoy. For some reason, Germany tried convoying into Denmark himself. I don't really understand why. He could have just supported Denmark to hold if he was worried about a Russian attack, and that would have actually kept Denmark. But in any case, he did what he did, and it's not looking like it's going to work out well, because he's losing Belgium at the same time that he is losing Denmark. The French stab here, coupled with the Russian attack, and the fact that England is not actually losing Norway, seems likely to prove fatal. And I feel bad for Germany. He is probably doing everything he can to keep hold of the French as an ally, but that build, just that build, convinced France that he was a future enemy, even though he's now attacking Russia with every unit he can, just to reassure France that those fleets are really about dealing with Russia in the future as well as with England, not anything to do with France. But the damage is done, even though I'm pretty sure that France could have gotten a board top working with Germany, and we'll see if he manages to get that here anyway. In the build phase, Germany destroys one fleet and one army, leaving his home centers, frankly, a little less defended than they might be, and continuing his offensive against Russia. Russia, by the way, being played by the tournament director Bill Hackenbracht. Russia gets Fleet St. Pete South Coast, very anti-German, long-term also anti-English build, not really necessary to be able to participate in the destruction of Germany, so England really needs to watch out here. France gets another fleet in Brest, so England and I both need to watch out here. And Austria gets an army in Budapest. So Austria is looking pretty formidable by land at this point. Spring 1903, we see that I'm anticipating a possible stab by Austria, because to my mind, Austria was discussing things in a way that suggested to me he didn't really intend for me to get a lot out of this attack on Turkey. And Russia also, supporting Austria in this, made me feel as if I needed to worry about a backstab myself. I move into Tyrolia and Apulia, just in case Austria's attacking me. These aren't aggressive moves per se. My move to Apulia can't threaten a single Austrian center. They are purely defensive in nature. And they also don't sabotage our offensive. You see, I am still attacking Turkey. I take Smyrna this season. Austria, at the same time, attacking Bulgaria, and moving away from me and into Galicia. And so maybe my bit of doubt here is not quite justified. Russia supporting himself into Armenia, leaving Turkey cornered in 2 dots. In the west, we see that Germany and Russia are doing a pretty strange dance here. Germany supports himself into Kiel from Baltic, no one moving to Kiel, so he doesn't bounce with anybody. Germany also going for Warsaw, which bounces with Russia. He and Russia are pretty strongly opposed at this point, I think. And France, taking advantage of the fact that England and Germany are still not on good terms, France goes to North Atlantic Ocean, while Germany moves into Liverpool. So France has the power to either help England recover, or work with Germany, or even to take all the spoils away from Germany while still allowing England to collapse. Both England and Germany are in a very vulnerable place now, and France has basically dominated the map on the western side. He's got the diplomacy as well as the tactical game kind of wrapped around his finger. And it's pretty impressive to see. I didn't agree with him stabbing Germany. I thought it was risky, but given that he's got these players so well under control, I can't really question his methods too much. Going to fall, we see that France supports Germany remaining in control of Liverpool. France also moves his English Channel unit to Wales and moves Mid-Atlantic Ocean to English Channel. So this is a really big move against England here. France also moves into Munich and takes it. This is a really strong set of French expansionist moves, weakens England quite dramatically, and also weakens Germany while forcing them both to consider relying on him. Because they need him. They need to not be attacked by him. They need help. They need someone to rescue them, and they're hoping France will do it, and they need France to do it. They're going to have a lot of trouble working with each other. At the same time that France is kind of running the map over there, Russia has landed in Holland from the previous season and hold on to it this season because England cuts German support as Germany tries to retake it. At the same time that England is doing that, Russia sneaks into Norway. So England perhaps being played the most out of everyone in the Western Hemisphere, or in the Western sphere of this map. In the East, we see that Austria supports Germany into Warsaw, takes Romania from Russia, continues to hold on to Bulgaria, and receives my support into Constantinople, while at the same time Russia takes Ankara. Now, this is a real low point for Russia on this map, and it's an incredible high for Austria. This is one of those games where Austria seems like he could get super swole and overtake everyone else on the map. And naturally now everyone is beating down my door, demanding that I do something about this. And I mean, it's not just one person. Russia is obviously a big advocate for attacking Austria, but France is also strongly nudging me toward that, saying the game's not going to be balanced, Austria is going to take everything over. And you know, maybe they have a point. Maybe. But I think this is a place where I probably should have found a way to work things out with Austria. Certainly Austria is gaining too much relative to me, but he's not going to run over the map. Other players aren't going to allow that. France has some power to restrain him. I have some power to restrain him. Russia's still fighting. So there's no reason to assume that things will be unbalanced in favor of Austria, especially not when really France has just about as much leverage over the map as Austria. Austria does have 8 centers, so more than anyone else. But he's not dominating or anything. And Russia isn't actually really dropping units. In fact, in the build phase, Russia gets a new army in Moscow. So he's not exactly losing here, and he's still got plenty of equipment to keep fighting with. Austria gets 3 armies, which is a good sign, at least for me, because none of them are fleets. France gets an army in Marseille. I get a fleet in Naples because I have Smyrna. England destroys unit in Yorkshire. And that's all. No one else gets anything new. Looking to the spring, we see that I do indeed go with the suggestions from others and stab Austria. It's not a powerful stab. It's a stab based on him not expecting it, and so I do sneak into Trieste, but can't hold it necessarily. I sneak into Smyrna because Austria didn't bother supporting it, and Russia was willing to support me in. And Austria is invading Russia to the best of his ability right now, and also moving to attack the German centers that France is dominating now. So naturally after this, there is a lot of discussion between me and Austria, and we're talking about how we can make up. Austria is saying that, you know, maybe he should have seen that things were unbalanced in his favor a little too much, which they definitely were. And he's kind of saying the right things, but I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure if I actually want to try and work together or stick the knife in as hard as I can, as my spring moves kind of made the effort to do. Austria is offering to give up Greece in exchange for me returning Trieste. I'll also keep Constantinople. and he'll help me get into Ankara. And that's a good offer. That's a very reasonable offer, I think. He's also offering to move Tyrolia over into Piedmont, so he can help me by threatening France. Or perhaps that was my idea. In any case, that is agreed. At the same time, in the west, we see that France is really just continuing to overwhelm the other players over there. He's now taken Liverpool. He's taken Holland. He's invaded Germany already, and he's supporting Russia's unit in Holland into Kiel. And so, basically, he's using Russia as the tip of the spear in his own invasion of Germany. And it's a bad situation for everyone who doesn't speak French. Going to fall 1904, though, we see that Russia takes Denmark, Russia keeps hold of Kiel, and with me distracting and attacking Austria still, Russia retakes Romania. Much less fortunate, Russia also walks into Smyrna, one of my centers, because he was aware I was going to go after Bulgaria. And so Russia, at the same time that he gets me to really thrust the knife into Austria and make the stab more permanent, also betrays me immediately for 1 dot. What a jerk. Well done, though. Well done, because now I'm in a situation where I have broken the Austrian position for him, but Russia is not my ally, and Austria is not going to be as ticked off at Russia as he is at me. So my situation could be much, much better. At the same time, what's going on in the West is pretty much holding constant. Germany trying to retake centers and failing, everyone else supporting things to hold, except for that Russia does force his way into Denmark this season. So Russia is having a really good year now. Turns out that after the low point of last year, Russia is ready to roll back over this map. Going to the build phase, Russia gets new armies, I get 2 armies and a fleet, France gets a fleet in Brest and an army in Marseille, Austria destroys the units in Piedmont and Bohemia, indicating the desire to mostly defend the homeland, although he's reduced to 3 dots thanks to my brutal and horrific stab. And I'm trying to make up with Austria, but I don't think it's going to happen. We see in the spring that although I willingly vacated Trieste for Austria, Austria is having none of it. He's supporting himself in. He's going to Vienna as well to make sure he can support himself with 3 units in fall if need be. I am doing a coordinated bounce with France in Piedmont. I am trying to go after Russia now in Smyrna and Ankara, but Russia now has Austria as a janissary, basically. And that's a fact that will characterize the rest of this game. And it's really bad, because even though France is still dominating the West, and I'm pretty powerful in the Southeast, Russia continues to receive Austrian help for the remainder of this game. And really, in effect, that makes him the largest power right now. By far, because with Austria's extra 3 units, he's way ahead of the rest of us. I mean, he was already going to be the largest power. The rest of the game is me failing to make headway against Russia, having to negotiate things with France so that we don't go to war. We, at one point, do sort of start to fight, because I try to invade from the south, with France being very prudent about never leaving himself open once it's obvious that I've become pretty large and threatening. So I'm not actually a real threat to him because he's being clever. Russia just slowly continues to take back more and more territory. Yes, he occasionally loses a dot, but mostly he is just getting handed territory from Austria and taking back territory that was taken from him by others. And so, at a certain point, we all agree to end the game, and Russia is on top. I am in a somewhat healthy 3rd place. It's not a bad result for Italy, really, but it's not something I could be really happy with. And it's really my best result in this tournament so far. I will say I am also the top Italy of the tournament, so at least I got some kind of credit for my result in this game. but it's not something I'm super proud of. I do feel I could have done better if I had stuck with Austria, and we've had discussions since then, since this game, to that effect. We could have done well by sticking together. Instead, he was a little greedy, and I got pretty stabby, and thus we both undermined our chances and clipped our own wings and didn't soar as high as we could have. I could have stabbed him much later and gotten much more out of it. But you guys look at the map and let me know what you think. This is the final map of the game. This is when we agreed to draw, spring 1907, without ever having those final orders process. I hope you're enjoying my recollections of this tournament. I do not play tournaments very often, but I wanted to make sure I shared these reflections with you because it is such a special occasion. At this point, I'd like to thank and credit my Patreon patrons. They are great, and they are supporting this channel as I strive to create ever more and more interesting diplomacy content. And I also want to take a moment to shout out the other thing that I'm doing creatively right now. As I covered in my announcement video, my new story, Ruthless, Path of Conquest, is live and available for reading on the website Royal Road. Just about the entirety of Volume 1 of the story is now posted on the website. Volume 2 will be forthcoming. I was also uploading audio of those chapters to YouTube, but I've stopped that, so now the only way to enjoy the material is by reading it. And the only place to read it currently is on Royal Road. At some point next year, there may be other announcements about other places to read it, but I'll leave that till later for now. Going to the Royal Road story and reading it, it is in the video description, is almost as valuable at this point in time as literally handing me money, especially if you follow it and rate it 5 stars. Although, again, I've also launched a Patreon for this story, in case you wanted to literally hand me money for it. If Ruthless Path of Conquest takes off well enough, I would like to spend my life creating stuff and make my living that way. If it wasn't obvious, this would also be very good in terms of its effect on my likely taking on new and interesting creative projects, some of which may be of interest to you. Till next time, Florida Man, out.